sir. Yes, sir. What's going on, man? It's your boy AB. We're here again. Another installment, another episode. It's a sad day, but before we get into anything, obviously, make sure y'all continue to like, subscribe, comment, share. Help us that we may help you. Continue to bring all the great content that we bring here at Open Gym Network to you guys each and every week. And also our sponsors. Make sure you check out SeatGeek. First time sign up, use the promo code only1AB at SeatGeek to get $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek for any event, sporting event, concert, whatever you choose. Also, anything you don't like, any displeasures during a game, after a game, things you like, didn't like, current events, moments that happen throughout the week in the world of sports and entertainment, make sure right at the bottom you hit and call the voicemail line and leave your comment. And I try my best to get through. And also just comment to a lot of different things that you guys have to talk about. But let us move on. And like I said, thank you for joining me today. Let us move on. So all you know, the NFL season, regular season has come to a conclusion. And one thing remains the same. Our Philadelphia Eagles stink. Woo! You talk about, I know I said it before, but this is really a laugh to keep from crying type of moment. Birds, Eagles, yes, they lose their final game of the season to the New York stinking Giants, 27-10. Had some players leave the game early. I guess the key stats here is Marcus Mariota went 13 for 20, 148 yards, one touchdown, one interception. These are the highlights, I guess. Kenneth Gainwell, 7 carries for 62 yards, and Quez Watkins, 8 catches for 93 yards and one touchdown. But let's get into it. Because at this point, these Eagles, I got the gear on today. I always rep, but I started to wear all black initially. Because, essentially, I know the playoffs has been set. The matchups have been set. Eagles will be facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Florida on Monday night, 8 p.m. after losing to the Giants with a final record on the season. After going 10-1, might I ask, 11-6 on the season. I believe it's stated that this is probably one of the worst collapses in a team to start 10-1 and to not get a 12th win on the season. Literally just lose, what is it, one out of the last 6 games or 5 games it was. One out of the last 5, yeah. Man, where do I start with this game? It was completely and utterly a debacle from start to finish. Me personally, I feel like I know you want to go into the season with a groove and all the things like that, but you wasn't going to find your spark in that last game against the Giants. Already missing Devontae Smith, Schmitty, the previous week, losing DeAndre Swift prior to the game to illness. He didn't play, even though, that might be a little, just keeping him healthy, keeping him off of that life turf, as I will get into later. It struck again, I believe. But the Eagles from start to finish, if you was going to come out and play like that, call a game like that, play defense like that, you just might as well just like set the starters. At least the at least the ass whooping you got, or at least the the product you put on the field would match up and be correlating with who you had on the field. If you sat there and told me that you were going to sit all the starters, but you didn't. You sat all the starters. You said all. I mean, you played mostly all your starters except the ones that I mentioned. And defensively, no Fletcher Cox. He didn't play. But other than that, you had all your defensive starters back. Avonte Maddox back. Zach Cunningham was back. You still had the young studs in line, defensive line. Hassan Reddick, Bayard, Blankenship. Obviously, Slay is still out, because he had his surgery. But for the most part, you had a pretty healthy team going into that game, and you still look like you played like third stringers. Third stringers didn't want to tackle. No protection for the quarterback. No pass rush. Coverage was still terrible. You went up against Tyrod Taylor, who threw 23 for 32, 297 yards, one touchdown, and one pick with a bum thumb because he got injured in the game. And Tommy DeVito had to come in for a play, and he's hurt and went right back out. And Tyrod Taylor came in and still did that to that defense. This game was so bad. This game was so bad. And I don't turn off games regardless, even if it's good, bad, or indifferent. But literally had to. I watched Red Zone. I watched a movie. Like whatever I could find to do, I did. Uh, this team has this last month, the last 5 games has shown as each games went by, less and less and less fight. Less and less and less fight. And you know what? I got a couple uh areas of points here that I want to get into because the game itself isn't even worth talking about. Because if you watch that game, God forbid, don't go watch it. If anything, watch the highlights. But even at that, you can see how bad it was. So the game itself, as far as what happened on the field, was totally something you shouldn't even watch. it's not. It wasn't pretty from start to finish. Our first drive, usually a team come out with the first 15 plays scripted. You get something 3, 7, or at least move the ball. Boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 3, and out. No movement whatsoever. So that brings me to my first point. Coach Nick Sirianni, should he and is he coaching for his job this season? And at the start of the season, you probably would sit there and say, no, you just came from a Super Bowl berth. You lost in the Super Bowl only about 3, to the defending champs, Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, respectable Travis Kelce. That's a respectable loss. And not that you should have got back the next year, meaning this year, but you dang sure should be close to it regardless. That should be the expectation. It is to get back, but nothing less than the NFC Championship with this team presently constructed. And this is where I get to Nick Sirianni. And granted, everything that I get through, Howie Rosman does not run away from any of this because at the end of the day, he plays a major part in this. He constructed this team. He brought in a coach that he believes he should be able to control or wants to control, or he has the say so at the end of the day. Howie Roseman, the one who doesn't go out and get linebackers, and after guys like Kazir White and T.J. Edward leaves, the production at the linebacker position totally plummets. Even with wanted to see a guy like N'Kobe Dean come in, and between being hurt and just even on the field, just really didn't flash right when you needed to, but not putting any precedence on a linebacker. Strikes again. Not putting any precedence on a safety. Reed Blankenship's a nice guy, but isn't a starting safety in this NFL. Yes, he goes up and hit. Yes, he is fearless, but he's best served as a backup, a best served as spot duty. You go out and trade for Kevin Byard. Yes, at the moment when the trade happened, everyone should be elated because first you're getting some safety help next to Blankenship, who's for the most part has to play. But you get a veteran, a two-time All-Pro, Pro Bowl, all these things with everything, all the accolades that come with captain, all that. Obviously, as you can see, that didn't turn out. Go back and re-sign the two cornerbacks, Slay and Bradbury. Although it's a great pivot from not being able to re-sign CJ at the safety position, I felt like it was a solid pivot because, like I said, you needed corners, and I would have took at least one more year of the vets, going in and get the young guys that we have more groomed and ready to go. He relies on the defensive line too much and no production from the defensive line this year. Over 70 sacks last year, and this year I don't even know where they at, but I know they probably don't even have 50 on the year combined, if that. Hassan Reddick, great guy, but needs help. Josh Sweat, great start to the season. Don't want know what happened towards the end of the season. Signing older guys, even though I love them, BG, Fletcher Cox. Those guys. They're actually Fletcher Cox actually had a decent game, a decent season, a good season for the most part for his age this year. The only consistent thing we had on the defensive line all year, other than Jalen Carter, flashing here and there, but he's young, so but then you got Jordan Davis, who had a good start to the season, but looks like during as the season going, slowed down a bit. Not sure what it is. I know a lot of people are saying, conditioning and things, but I'm not an expert. Last thing I seen was the guy hustling to stop Josh Allen from getting the first down. I mean, he was gassed and fell out afterwards, but I mean, he played hard, but the production has dipped. So overall, the defense stunk. And Howie's a part of that because that's what he put together. Down to Nick Sirianni. Should he and is he coaching for his is he coaching for his job this year? And my answer to that is yes. And this is the reason why. You had a Super Bowl birth the previous year going into this year. Offense is pretty much intact from head to toe. You actually upgraded in the positions you felt like you needed to upgrade at running back. How he brings in DeAndre Swift, which I agree with. I like the move. I would have went another way, but you went out and for whatever it's worth, you went out and got Julio Jones. Offensive line comes back intact. Cam Jurgens is the only replacement on that offensive line to Salamalu, Isaac, and did a good job at that right guard position. Who we all thought might have struggled because he's probably the smallest offensive lineman that they had out on the field. But what do Nick Sirianni go and do? And this is how I look at the totality of this offense this season and how I do believe and how I do uh, correlate and connect that the offensive issues is directly connected to the coaches, and specifically Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson, who is the key cogs. And as it was stated earlier in the season, this is Nick Sirianni's offense. Brian Johnson just calls what Nick Sirianni has planned for the team. And for you to have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goller, even though he missed some games, off completely healthy offensive line. Like I said, DeAndre Swift at running back, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, for wherever it was, Quez Watkins, Adamake Sakias, Julio Jones, all these people. And within you lose to, and mind you, in awful fashion in all of them, you lose to the 49ers, you lose to the Cowboys, you lose to the Giants, you lose to the Cardinals and you lose to the New York Jets, excuse me, you lose to inferior teams alongside obviously the cream of the crop of the NFC right now is the 49ers and Cowboys. So you go out with a fully healthy team, like I stated before, no creativity, no switch up, nothing different. Literally every week is the same exact thing. And it was even so more prevalent this game past game because even when, and that's another thing. let me rewind back a little bit. Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job because you have a situation where the team already is pretty much solidified in their spot at the fifth seed. Cowboys 9 times out of 10 are going to beat the Washington, barring some miracle. Don't rest any players. Continue to send the same offense out there. Nothing different. Nothing changes. Had some early success running the ball. Stop running the ball. Start throwing again. Gets your number one wide receiver hurt after losing your number two wide receiver the previous game off of a dumb play call that got him hurt. Then on top of that, to compound it all, your starting quarterback finger is looking the other way. So now he's hurt in the middle of the game, has to come out with a dislocated finger. This whole team, this whole organization, this whole offense, everything around this team is plummeting. Everything around this team is just in a disarray. There's no faith. There's no trust. There's no opportunity. There's no options. There's no recourse. There's no change of directions. It's nothing there because in a time where the talent that was getting you through and getting you those 10 wins with the same offense, they were just, being very talented, making great plays, making great throws, making great catches, making great runs. When it was time, when defenses adjusted to certain things, when it was time for your head coach, offensive coordinator, and whoever else has an opportunity to speak and put things together, for them to scheme, for them to put players in places to be able to make things more easier, your head coach is where it's supposed to be, your offensive coordinator is where it's supposed to come from, and nothing has changed. Last year, even this year, halftime was a great time where we came out of adjustments. There were no more adjustments after halftime. You came out still trying to do the same thing. You still want to throw the ball 30 times. You still have one of the best run offensive lines in the NFL, and you still don't want to run the ball more than 12 times to a guy like DeAndre Swift, who, I might add, had 1,000 yards on the season with probably the least amount of carries out of all running backs this season, and still finished, I would believe, within the top 7 of top running backs this season with the least amount of carries, and even in some games not even carrying over single digits. So not only the offense is broken, not only the players don't believe in you, and let's just speak it, the players quit. The players quit. The players quit, whether you like it, whether you agree with it or not. When you sit there and you have a report come out literally hours before the game starts that A.J. Brown had a team, a players-only meeting, and one of the subjects that he brung up to these players is, let's trust our coaches. That is probably the biggest indictment on this coaching staff this year. That is the biggest indictment of this coaching staff this year. The simple fact that something like that was actually released, and I believe it was Jay Glazer, if I'm not mistaken, who somehow gets these inside things. But at least to sit there and say, let's trust our coaches, what says to me that all year these guys haven't been trusting you. And then even when the A.J. Brown interview he just had leading up to this game, this report that just came out confirmed it, but he said it earlier. That last play against the Seahawks, that's who they lost early. Against the Seahawks, that Jalen Hurts threw to him, the interception to end the game, they went rogue. The players went rogue. The offensive coordinator, the head coach, called a play. And the players, QB and Q included, I don't care how you spin it, the play got to come in through the QB. Rather, the QB said, let's change it, or the wide receiver said, let's change it, and the QB went with it, or the offensive lineman, or the lineman. I don't care who made it. Whoever made the decision, they all agreed to, let's just do this instead. And then a week later, the report comes out, A.J. Brown has a players-only meeting, and in the players-only meeting, it was clearly stated, let's trust our coaches. Right then and there, the locker room is gone. It been gone. The locker room been gone. We're just catching up to it now. We getting privy to it now, and as the season goes on, you know things start to trickle out a little more. Let's trust our coaches. How you supposed to win a championship, Super Bowl, playoff game, let alone a regular game, when your players are literally having to talk to each other and tell each other, come on, you guys, let's trust our coaches. The biggest indictment on Nick Sirianni, the biggest indictment on this coaching staff. This is why I believe he's coaching for his job. This is why I believe if they do not win or at least get to the NFC Championship game, this Nick Sirianni is out of here. And this notion of I don't want to, I don't like to speak on anyone's jobs or I don't want to see anybody fired. Forget that. Because in any other profession, if you are inadequately underperforming at your job duties, you get fired. I don't care if you're making millions of dollars. I don't care if you're not living up to what your job description is telling us you need to be, especially you, Nick Sirianni, when you're supposed to be the ultimate leader. You're supposed to be the ultimate culture setter. You're supposed to be the ultimate guy to be able to, when things are down, bring guys together. When you're not even doing that anymore, what are you doing for this team? And if you can't do that on top of the offensive struggles, the defensive struggles, the turmoil, the dysfunction within the locker room, or the lack of faith from the locker room, what are you here for? You must lose your job, period. If the Eagles can fire a Super Bowl, your only Super Bowl winning coach, not Andy Reid, we're talking about Doug Peterson, and we all know had his shortcomings as well. But if the Eagles can fire a Super Bowl winning coach, Nick Sirianni can be fired. Nick Sirianni can be fired because the job he's in here for is to keep this locker room together, keep these guys together, keep this engine going. And with all this talent that was on this offensive side of the ball that I just named, we should be better than this. These last 5 games should not have played out this way. Wins and losses come, but to sit there and literally be embarrassed again weekly, all prime time or highlighted games, 4 o'clock, 8 p.m., Monday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday afternoon, game of the week. Each and every time you get out there and you put this product on the field and get embarrassed after embarrassed, and you lose and you lose and you lose this deficit, you lose this lead, you have dysfunction on the field, players don't know what to do, players sulking, players upset, players confused, players arguing, and you're supposed to be that coach to keep all this together. Coach Nick Sirianni should be and will be playing and not playing but coaching for his job. The Philadelphia Eagles are started this season at the best record in the NFL and is ending the regular season going into the playoffs as the 5th seed, being a visitor to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers led by Baker freaking Mayfield. Just think about that. He's coaching for a job. And if this doesn't turn out other than an NFC championship berth, Nick Sirianni should lose his job. And I mentioned before, players quit. You watched that game Sunday, the defense didn't even want to play anymore. That game was literally over in the first quarter. Even though the score was only 3-1, 3-0 rather. These players quit. These players did not want to play. Defensively, I'm talking right now, did not want to tackle. Just going through the motions. Offensive players didn't want to play. Half-assing it on their blocks. Not getting open. And like I said, already missing Smitty, and then you go down, A.J. Brown. Now you're stuck with Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus, Britton Covey, Julio Jones, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift, who didn't play. So now you're down to Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott. Essentially all backups. And guess who's out there playing with these guys? Yeah, your QB1, who in the game dislocates his middle finger on what? His throwing hand. So now you have that going into next week. Now you have both starting wide receivers banged up. Your starting QB banged up. Your running back coming off an illness. A tight end that's back, but obviously just came back from a broken arm. Offensive linemen beat up and battered within this game. Offensive linemen going out, having to come back in because another offensive lineman is hurt now. So now that hurt offensive lineman that got to go out, the hurt offensive lineman that went out before him got to come back in and play for the hurt offensive lineman that just went out. This team is in complete disarray. So obviously the players has quit. The players has quit. When you got things like that being said from them in reports, the players have quit. They don't have faith in you anymore. They don't have trust in you anymore when it comes to play calling. You or Brian Johnson, because obviously, especially this year, the head coach and OC are connected more than what you even think, simply because of how much impact and how much input Nick Sirianni has on the offense this year, which pretty much looks like the old Nick Sirianni when he first got here, year one Nick Sirianni offense, before Shane Steichen took over. Offensive scheme is broken. You would think after your QB gets hurt, Jalen Hurts, he plays a couple more series, still terrible. He goes out, you put in Marcus Mariota. He's in the game to play the rest of the game. You don't want to further any injury, even though I believe from the get-go, you shouldn't have played these guys from the get-go, from the start. From the start. Now Mariota is in the game. Do you think Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson sit there and say, hey, let's protect him a little bit. Let's run the ball a little bit more. We got three capable running backs that's here that we can use. Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, all those different types of guys. We got three capable running backs that's here that we can use. Let's just pound the rock. And mind you, They had success running the ball. They had success running the ball yesterday. But he proceeded to throw the ball with Marcus Mariota 20 times. 20 times. 20 times. And that's only within a half of football he threw the ball. You're not even, not that you give up or throw in the white towel, but you're not even trying to just speed the process up quicker, run the ball, just get the clock moving. Because at this point in time, after halftime, there was no need to try to find a rhythm. You had no offensive players in there. You had all backups in offensively and defensively. So you're not playing to like find rhythm or try to, get something going into the playoffs. So it's nothing like that going on. Dallas is already going up on Washington by this time, by halftime. It's pretty much in the bag that Dallas is beating Washington, and Dallas is going to win that game, and Dallas is going to win the division. So you had nothing to play for, but you continue to throw the ball. And then not even that, the same exact offense. So to protect my mental health, to protect my sanity, I had to turn that off. And I don't turn off games, especially for what I do. I want to have as much insight as possible. But what insight could you possibly have gotten from that game? Defensively, everyone told me it should be better. Matt Patricia, Bill Belichick tree. It should be better at least. We got good enough players. When I told y'all from the get-go, the defense is not scheme-based. Sean Desai was not egregious at the defensive coordinator. Yes, in certain situations, in situational football, yes, if an all-out blitz in red zone, you want to put some pressure on the wide receivers to throw them off their route so the ball can come out quick and the pressure can get there. The little things of football, yes. But he wasn't egregious. Now, Matt Patricia, who y'all thought was just the savior of the defense, putting Hassan Reddick, putting Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith in coverage. Literally the first play of the game. Literally the first play of the game. Matt Patricia had Hassan Reddick in coverage. The first play of the game. Come on. Sean Desai was not that bad. It was always personnel based on this defense. Where Howie Rosman comes into play. Because the middle of the field, and now it trickled out to the outsides, because now you got corners that's trying to compensate for linebacker and safety play. Everyone playing for self. Everyone playing for, I don't want to make a mistake. Everyone playing for, I have to compensate for this guy because he's not fast enough. And mind you, in this game, Sidney Brown, the young DB that we have who took the 90-something, was a 91, 92-yard touchdown last week back for a touchdown, he goes out with another injury. So you thought putting essentially a down lineman. Yes, he plays outside linebacker. He's just standing linebacker that just rushes the passer. So he's just a pass rusher. Hassan Reddick, that is. The first play, he wants to put him in coverage. Yep, that'll work. Pencil guy, the one that's going to save the day on the defense. So overall, this team is just down spiraling. Then I know I heard a lot of chatter about, people unsure of Jalen Hurts and his future with this team. Let me start by prefacing by this. Jalen Hurts is not absolvable from this season. Jalen Hurts had bad games. Jalen Hurts had bad throws. Jalen Hurts has double digits interceptions. Jalen Hurts probably is now up to about I would say 18 to 20 turnovers overall between interceptions and fumbles this season. So if I had to put a grade on it for Jalen Hurts, combining both sides early part of the season to the next probably a B minus, only because early on in the season, he did a lot to win those games when the things was on his back. So I'm not going to discredit the fact that he came back in that Buffalo Bills game after being down double digits after halftime. So B minus for sure. So the whole discussion of long term future, not that he was perfect this year and not that he doesn't need to grow and learn and get better, rather. Jalen Hurts is probably lower on my list of people or things we need to look at when it comes to this team, among other things. Because I got a list of people I can start with before we even get to Jalen Hurts. And I only look at it as like we only have two sizes or two sample sizes of what we've seen. We've seen the very good Jalen Hurts MVP season under Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts. Then we had, you know, our Jalen Hurts under Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts this year, who looked totally different from what he was last year. And I say all that just to say the fact that Jalen Hurts is not the main issue. He has issues, but I believe under a new head coach or more so offensive coordinator, I believe he can get back to what we've seen. But at the end of the day, this will all be over soon. Rather it's over next week or maybe even the week after, because obviously there's a slimmer of a chance of them being able to beat the Buccaneers and going into the next round and then maybe losing later on to Dallas or I mean to San Fran essentially, because that's who we'll be playing next. Essentially, this is over. Season is over. In the off season, we need to clear house. Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, everything. Get some guys in who actually know what they're doing and actually have some say so, and not Howie Rosman telling them what they need to do. This Eagles team is definitely fixable, but it has to start with the head coach and clean the house, man. Again, the playoffs is here, but essentially, can you really believe or do you trust them to do anything?